It's happening.
I know. It's kind of unbelievable. I've had this idea for freaking 3 years. And we're finally doing it.
Yeah, it's like a little brick with the lights on it.
Yeah, it's a big operation.
Yeah, downstairs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought she was coming like one guy,
Yeah.
like usual.
What's up?
What's going on?
Long time no
I
see.
know. How you been?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Really good to see you. I like this shirt. Yeah, you're welcome. So, obviously, I want to start off with saying I just appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. We met, how long ago was that now?
Someone asked me that. I feel like it was at least 2 years.
Something like that.
It was in
Martha's
Martha's
Vineyard?
Vineyard for the Goldman event.
Yep. So, okay, so let's start from like beginning-ish. So, again, you went to UCLA, studied philosophy, went to Yale Law, was practicing mergers and acquisitions at Skadden.
Yeah.
You hated it.
I did not like it. Yeah.
Why? Like, what was the? It was because you were only doing it for a year, right?
I did it for 3 years.
3
Yeah, I
years.
did it for
Excuse
3
me.
years.
Okay.
But I knew after the first year that it probably wasn't going to be what I wanted it to do for the long term.
Okay.
And I didn't like it not because the quantum of work, like how much actual work it was.
Mm-hmm.
That actually wasn't the worst part. It was more so the quality of the work and that I didn't feel fulfilled by it. So we were working on these billion-dollar mergers, one big company buying another one, and all these transactions, and you're in the minutia of the contract or the agreement, which is okay, that's part of the process if you're a transactional lawyer. But for me, it just didn't seem like the work I was doing mattered. And it's like, if this transaction happens or if it doesn't happen, how's the world? And like, these people are all rich already.
Yeah.
And then we would have, these big deals, and we'd be popping champagne if it closed, and all the lawyers would be like high-fiving after so much work, rightfully.
Yeah.
And then I would see the wire go out, and I would see like where the real wealth was being made. And no shade to the lawyers, but it was not the partners at the firm I was working. So that really got me thinking of like, okay, if I want to maximize for like actual wealth generation, probably working, at a law firm or being like a service provider is not the best way to do that. And also, most importantly, it wasn't fulfilling to me.
So during that time, I imagine in those 3 years that you weren't happy, you threw the party in Harlem where you met Dave.
Yeah, he threw the party.
Dave threw the party. Excuse me. Okay.
Yeah, anybody that knows Dave and I, he's much more of the social butterfly. And he actually he had a roommate, which I'm also friends with, and they used to throw these house parties in Harlem, building relationships, and many of those people we're still close with, so many years later, and we're not going out the same, well, at least I'm not going out to the same level, partying as much, but
Wife, 2 kids at home, shut that down.
But some of those relationships that were fostered during that era of life, I met Dave at one of those. We had a bunch of mutual friends, met him there. We started kind of hanging out socially.
Outside of the parties?
Over time, outside of his parties, other parties. Other parties, clubs.
Yeah.
When you're single, not single, but like no kids, and you're in the city, you go out a lot. Like, that's just what you do in New York. So it was a very social time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that the interesting thing, which I have a question for you, you kind of look at a lot of the major companies, right? Like, let's take Apple. Like, the two Steves knew each other back in, I think Jobs was in high school, Wozniak was in college. You look at Microsoft, you got Bill Gates and Paul Allen, high school friends. I think Google, they both met at Stanford. How did you know that, like, this was somebody that you could trust enough to build a billion-dollar business with?
I think when really close relationships can get fostered over a shorter amount of time.
Yeah.
If there's like high frequency of interacting, particularly, I would say, I think men in particular really bond and socialize over like doing things in the physical world, like going out together, playing sports together, like those kind of things. It's hard for men to build relationships a lot of times, but like that's why college, sports, maybe early to mid-20s when you're like really doing those things is when a lot of relationships can get really built faster than other times in life. So we got close, and this was over the course of 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
So it was a good amount of time
Okay.
where it wasn't like I just met him last month at the party and then we started
We got this
Squire.
idea.
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
it was some time, and then we were both in a similar stage of life where he was working, had been working at JP Morgan in finance and had left to go to business school. And I was at Skadden, but we both were really kind of in the same state of mind of like, okay, what else can we do? Like, we see where this trajectory is taking us, like this corporate world,
Yep.
and then we like, all right, what are the other options? So we started exploring other ideas. And I think that for founders, it's really good to have complementary skill sets, personalities. Usually, like you'll see that, like one will be, way more extroverted, one will be way more technical, one will be the business guy.
So out of the two of you, would you say that Dave is more of the like networker?
He's definitely, he's
Okay.
definitely more of the networker.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just started brainstorming, like, what could we do? On the weekend, instead of going out, we'd be like, all right, let's like whiteboard ideas. And that in and of itself was fun too. It was
Yeah.
like something different.
Yeah.
And just dreaming big of like, what could we work on that would be like a real problem we could solve. So we didn't have the idea initially. It took
You did
time to
not.
kind of come up with it. No.
You were whiteboarding like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
industries are we looking at?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And about how long did that take before you guys were like, it's barbershops?
I feel like it took not that long in retrospect, probably weeks of doing this.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And then it was kind of just like that light bulb moment where it's just like, this makes sense. Yeah.
So how much runway did you guys have when you decided to make the jump? Like how much money did you put into the company? And how much, like, this may be too personal, so
Yeah.
you could say, Ryan, I'm not
Yeah.
answering that. But like, how much cushion did you have? Like, okay, we can sit on this. Like we ourselves in our bank accounts can afford
Yeah.
to like sit, and this is what we can afford to like put into the business.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. It's something that people need to hear because these things are important. What I remember, it was around 100,000 that I had saved
Okay.
from my salary, and also since I knew I was going to be making this move, like there's certain things that I did when I had the benefit of like this salary and this kind of safety. So I like purchased a condo,
Okay.
in Harlem. Like did all these things before because I was like, once I leave and I don't have this salary, like this is not going to be an option. So and when the mortgage is often less than rent it would have been.
Correct.
So that kind of set us up, and I think it was about I want to say 100,000, which was a good amount of runway, but not infinite by any means.
Yeah,
Definitely
yeah.
very finite. It's funny how fast it goes when you have just a sum and that's it, and you're just
Correct.
depleting it
You're
every
just, like,
month.
watching
It's just like
it.
going down.
Yeah.
So that was the situation. Yeah.
And so did that 100 go into the business?
Some of it did,
Okay.
but most of that was just like life.
Life.
Like keeping the lights on, literally, and yeah.
So
just staying
how much
afloat.
of it went into Squire
Um,
between you and Dave?
20 or so. Like we didn't have costs. We didn't have high costs. Like we weren't paying ourselves anything. We
Right.
didn't have any employees.
Right.
What we had to do was find somebody to build out the first version of the product, or MVP,
Yeah.
minimum viable product. And the goal was not to pay them to do that. The goal was to like recruit them to join the team.
You're gonna hire someone to create your MVP. You guys had never started a business before, either of you.
I had not a tech business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a tech company.
No, never started a tech company. No.
No engineering backgrounds for either
No.
of you.
No.
How did you know kind of where to start?
I didn't. I didn't know where to start.
So like you quit your job.
Yeah.
Dave quits his.
Yeah.
Now you guys are in WeWork spaces.
Yeah.
You're in WeWork spaces, and what then?
So I didn't know where to start, but we needed someone to join the team as a CTO co-founder. Like,
Okay.
The idea of outsourcing and paying someone to build a product seemed like a recipe for failure.
Okay.
And I had talked to other people who had tried similar, and basically your interests and this outsourced developer's interests are always going to be opposed. You want the best product possible, and you want to pay the least money possible, and you want it as fast as possible. They want to get paid as much as possible,
Spend the least amount of
spend
time
the least
on it.
amount of time on it, which means the quality is likely going to be lower. So I've actually never heard of that working. I'm sure it has. I'm sure there's outliers, but I've never heard for non-technical founders. If you're technical, that's different because you can control more and have insights,
Correct,
transparency.
because
But
you
if you're
know how to-
non-technical and you don't know what they're building, I've not heard of one incident where somebody's like, yeah, I just paid and it blew up and we're a success. I'm sure it's happened, but it's very, very rare. Usually what happens is you end up spending a ton of money
Yeah.
and they keep milking you, and
Yeah.
giving you small improvements, and you don't know if something should take a few hours or a few weeks.
Yeah.
Literally, how would you know? So it's a recipe to get exploited. So I didn't want to do that.
So you guys had a run-in, if I'm not mistaken, right?
We had a few run-ins. Which one are you referring to?
Oh, didn't know that. Okay, so the only one that I sort of know about is he was a scammer. And
Oh,
you guys were
yes.
like chasing a guy down the street
Yeah.
because he like stole $5,000.
He stole $5,000. Most importantly, he stole time.
Yeah.
And it was the most bizarre thing. So this was in the phase where we were working in the WeWorks.
Yep.
We couldn't even really afford a real office. We were just like sneaking in and like sitting at the communal desks and but getting to know people. And then one of the days, we met this guy who was working, he was a CTO at a legit VC-backed company that had an office in WeWork. I'm not gonna say the name of the company. But we kind of hit it off with him, told him about what we were working on, as we would do for everyone. He was like, that sounds pretty cool, I'd love to get involved. We were like super excited. And over time, he's like, yeah, like I'll build this out for you. We give him kind of the idea and what we want to solve for. And then it's just like weeks are going by where he's like, yeah, I'm working on it, I'm building it. I think at some point we may have given him $5,000. I forget what it was supposed to be for. And I didn't know at the time like how iterative like development and like, lean, coding, like how it should work. Like, but like you should be building, shipping, seeing it, getting feedback. Like we just thought, okay, send it to us when it's ready,
Yeah.
when it's done, and then
Yeah.
we'll go sell it.
Yeah.
Which is not how it works at all. But over time we're seeing no progress isn't being made. He's got a ton of excuses. It's always something. And we start feeling like we're just being kind of like led in circles.
Yeah.
And maybe, 2 or 3 months have gone by at this point. And then he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna invest in the company. So we were like, okay, this is just sounding real suspicious. So
Yeah.
he's like, all right, I'm investing in the company. And then he actually sends over an investment agreement document. And that's where he fucked up. Because I was a lawyer. So when I saw that, I was like, and it had a law firm name on it. It was so poorly drafted and it was just clearly garbage. Like no professional looked at this. I was like, okay, this guy's full of shit. I don't know how exactly he's full of shit, but then like the real like red flag went up.
Yeah.
So started looking into him, just deep diving, research, trying to find, and eventually we came across, we see a website. It said, the Montauk Grifter. It's got a picture of this dude. And he's been going around pretending to be different types of professionals, doctors, lawyers in different towns.
And
like
this man was
scamming
really a
people.
CTO
He was
for
a
a VC.
CTO for a real VC-backed company. Just had scammed his way, and he knew how to talk the tech language. He knew how to BS. So that I was like, wow, he was like busted. So I actually reached out to that CEO of that company, told him like, yo, you need to know this guy.
Yeah.
So he ended up losing his job and stuff there. But then we met him at WeWork, and I was like, yo, like I know all about what you do. I know who you are. I said his real name and all that. He's like, no, that's not all these excuses. That's not me, whatever. I'm gonna send the money. It's like a weird psychological, these people, this is sickness where they wanna push it to the extreme, like to see how
The
far they can go
adrenaline.
with the adrenaline of like, and then they wanna get caught. That's like climactic experience. They want that. I think they want to get caught deep down.
To then see if they can get away
To
from
see
getting
if they can
caught.
get, and then they can do it again and whatever. So he's like, yeah, I'm gonna, because he thought the money, because we were desperate for money. He thought that was the hook, but I knew that was never coming because I saw the deal. I knew it was never a real deal.
Correct.
So I'm like, no, we're going right now. We're walking to the ATM, and we're drawing that $5,000 right now. So I walked his ass to the ATM.
And you got it.
Yeah, I got the $5,000.
You did?
Back. Yeah. Like he wasn't about to not give me that money. And I was like, all right, never want to see you again. We never saw him again. He got kicked out of rework. He lost his job, and then he probably went on to scam more people. I don't know. But that was crazy. That could have killed us right there. Just
Correct.
that whole experience. Like had we not known and kept wasting time and energy.
Yep.
So yeah, that's just.
So
Yeah.
you said which ones? You guys have had a few of these like wild experiences.
That was probably the most wild as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But we've had just, there were other people who we tried to bring on early on to build and it just ended up not working out. Not for nefarious reasons.
Yeah,
though. Just,
So you knew, which was really smart because I didn't think about it that way for sure, that like it's not really in your interest to not have a CTO within the company.
No, I think it's your interest to have a CTO within the company.
No, sorry, not to
Outsource.
Yes, not to outsource.
That I
did not think about it that
that's
way.
in your interest, yeah.
How long did it take you to find the CTO?
Maybe 8 months.
8 months.
I feel like, yeah, because the first we wasted like two or 3 months with this guy, this other guy.
Yeah.
And then a couple other ones, or at least one other one we tried, and then eventually we found another guy. And we didn't know him at all. Just kind of.
You didn't know him?
No, I didn't know.
Okay, so
We were
tell me how
desperate.
you guys got him to get on board.
Also met him at WeWork.
No way, really?
We spent almost all of our working hours at WeWork. Like, this was the height. This is 2015, 2014, 15, going into 16. Like, this was like WeWork apex. And it was great. I mean, it was just, you would go there were all these founders building all these amazing companies. It was just like being in college again, but everybody was trying to build a company.
Something.
It was a really great community. It's kind of sad, like, what ended up happening.
Yeah. So I would imagine if he was at WeWork, he was building something else.
No, it was like a networking event.
Okay.
At that time.
Okay.
And he had just moved to New York. So
Okay.
we kind of just met him.
So you're at the point where now 8 months later you found your CTO.
Yeah.
You guys have this idea of like, I read something that said it was Uber for barbers.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Yeah, that was the original idea. Mobile app, Uber for barbers. People could go on there, find barbers, book, pay seamlessly, not have to have cash. And then the idea was the barbers would use it to kind of manage their schedules and see the bookings, receive payment.
Yeah.
And that was the first version of the product we built. For the time, actually, I think it was a really great MVP. It really solved all those pain points. And I think it really particularly solved the needs of the user, the consumer, the person getting the haircut. Where it lacked was on the barbershop side. Like, it didn't really meet the needs of the business owner in particular.
You said it solved the pain point for the customer, but not for the barber.
Yeah.
What made you go after the barber, not the customer? Like, what made you guys make that decision? Because I feel like you could have run with the customer as your target audience, no?
Yeah, getting consumers at scale is just, building a consumer brand is so difficult and expensive if you're a small company. It's much easier to get the business,
Okay.
B2B. If you get the business owner, or the barber in this case, then his clients, the consumers, have to use Squire anyway, because they want to
Correct.
book with him. So that was like chicken or the egg. Like in this case, you go for the chicken. Like
Yeah,
that, you get the
facts.
business and then you'll get the consumers. To do the opposite, to get so much consumer demand that every barber has to use you, we'd have to have millions and millions. We'd have to have be
Yeah.
saturated in any given market.
Yeah.
And it's possible. We tried doing little pop-up things, events. We would do things like downtown by NYU. We had one of those Wheel of Fortune boards, so you spin it and we just be there, and people would sign up for the app and spin it and get a free haircut. It was, it's kind of like what do they say, guerrilla marketing?
Yeah, yeah.
We used to do chalk graffiti all around the city, download Squire, get your haircut. use this promo code. You know, that stuff, you'll get a few bookings, but it's very, very hard, difficult to do enough. So we were like, all right, we're running up against the wall. This ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
Like, let's think about how do we get the barbers to really use it in a way where it's like mission critical for them, where it's not just like they're using it if we happen to send them a new client, like where they're using it for every single transaction.
Yeah. And so, okay, so I imagine at this point, had you applied to Y Combinator?
This is around the process. Yeah, we ended up applying 3 times.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was around this time when we first started applying.
What changed between time 1, time 2 to like time 3 you're getting in?
We wouldn't stop. I think eventually we started getting more traction.
Okay.
The first time we just got cold rejected, like that's it, just rejected.
Okay.
The second time we didn't get into the core program, but we got into YC fellowship, where it was kind of like a light version of YC, and then based on that, we applied a third time and actually got into the core program. But throughout the whole process, we were just trying to get more and more users, get more people booking, get more barbers on, and by the third time we had a little more traction, and I think they saw the kind of relentlessness and.
Okay.
Yeah.
At what point did you open up the barbershop in Chelsea Market?
Yeah, that was right around when we actually got into YC, before we got into YC, but it was 2016. What was happening is that we had already discovered we're gonna have to pivot and build something for the whole shop, not just for the individual barber.
Yes.
And then eventually we got one customer, this really cool shop in Chelsea Market, and they started using it and kind of like we were building it for them as they were using it. So they were really like a beta customer almost.
You were building it for them.
We were getting feedback from them and building it like based on their needs. When you're selling to businesses in the early days before you have product market fit, like sometimes you're almost like a service business. Like you're like servicing them. Like, what do you need? We'll build it for you. I feel like it wasn't too long that we were working with them and kind of getting ramped up, getting all the barbers onboarded when the owner called us and said he was closing the barbershop down and he was tired. It was losing money. He was losing money on it.
Okay.
And this was like kind of like a more high-end. It's in the Chelsea Market building where Google is, YouTube, was at that time. So like really like a lot of tech, clientele. And he was like, yeah, I'm losing money. I'm moving back to California. Like I'm closing it down, firing all the barbers. So that's when we were like, all right, what can we, this like our one customer we finally got, and now we're gonna go back to square one.
Yeah.
So we convinced him to let us kind of assume his lease, step into his shoes, put up the money to take over the lease, and basically run the shop. We moved to California, so we were going flying back and forth, and we were like really like going back and forth between the Silicon Valley and then having the shop as we were like gearing up for demo day with YC and like trying to have like good traction. So that was a crazy, crazy time. But I think we ended up keeping the shop for a little under a year.
Okay. When
the lease expired, we were like, all right, should we extend it for like another X amount of years? We were like, this is a great learning experience, but running a barbershop is not easy.
Yeah.
So we need to focus on tech. So another shop chain came in and bought it out. For that 9-10 months, it was we learned so much. Yeah.
And so Y Combinator is how long of a program?
It's like 3 months. For us, we were in the summer batch, so it was summer 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you've finished Y Combinator, which I imagine you learned a ton there. Yeah. It's time to go find some money.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, they did a really good job of inviting the right investors and creating kind of FOMO environment, a scarcity environment. Like they all want to get in on these YC companies early.
Yeah.
So through that process, we were able to raise a seed round, not a big one though, very small, maybe like $1 million or so.
Okay.
That was the most we had raised at any given one point up until then.
Yep.
And that helped us continue.
So you said that was your seed round, and how long of a runway did $1 million give you?
We're always raising.
Perpetually
raising at that time. Because it wasn't enough to just be heads down and not think about fundraising.
Yeah. How'd your team change then? How many people were you able to kind of onboard with that?
I think we started bringing on a few more people. At that time when we did YC, it was still a small team. We maybe had like 6 or so employees, 6 or 7.
You had 6 or 7 by the time you got to YC.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so we had, including me and Dave.
And how were you paying them?
We had raised some angel money before the seed.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And about how much was the angel?
Maybe a couple $100,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Not
that
a
was
lot.
used really for.
That was used to bring on, so we hired a web engineer,
Okay.
a web developer, and then we hired like a biz dev person.
Okay. March 2020. I think I got this right. I think you raised 34 million in your Series B,
Yeah.
and then the pandemic hits.
Then the pandemic hit.
Barbershop closed,
Yeah.
but it ended up being like great for you guys, right? Eventually.
Eventually. Yeah.
Did it freak you out at first?
I mean, for sure. I mean,
Because at this point you're 4 or 5 years in.
yeah. 5 years.
Tell me about like, obviously like launching a business is incredibly hard, right? And every entrepreneur that I've talked to at this point is like, it's a roller coaster of emotions. What made you guys not throw the towel in?
Never considered throwing a towel.
Okay.
Not once.
Yeah.
But one of the most challenging, where if there was any time where I would have considered it, would have been then, was when we were raising our Series A.
That was
This was
Series A was
2019.
8 million?
2019, 8 million.
Okay.
And at that point, we actually were in a position where we like kind of had to raise. It was like make or break. We were limited runway. We had good numbers, and we flew back to California. And
Good numbers
moved
as
back.
far as revenue looked
Good,
good?
good numbers as far as revenue,
Okay.
unit economics, traction, everything, growth, solid, company to be at the Series A phase.
Yep.
It was very, very grueling. This is when we had like 60 meetings with different
Yep.
investor funds, and we literally had 59 no's. And it's just like over and over. And this was even more like painful because like we had to raise this money. Like it was existential if we didn't get it by a certain time. That was tough. And when you're on, the first 2 no's, everybody experiences rejection as part of it. But when you're in the 30th no, the 40th no, and they don't just say no, like there's a process. Like they, sometimes you think they're gonna say yes because they're showing interest, they're excited, they're digging in, they're doing diligence, they're you're meeting them, and you're like, all right, I think this one, and then eventually they send you the email or they have the call, and they're like, oh, we don't think the TAM is big enough, or oh, go just do this, we just need to see a little more revenue, or oh, we want to see that you can grow more in Canada. All these reasons, so a million and one reasons.
Yeah.
So that was very, very painful, but eventually you only need one. So we ended up getting one, and that helped us, get to the next level.
You get 59 no's.
Yeah.
Any of the advice that people gave you, did you take it? Like just go
From
do
the
this,
investors who said no?
Uh-huh.
No, never take advice from investors who say no. The reasons that they say no are sometimes just out of thin air. They feel they have to say something.
Say something.
And often the truth is not something that they're going to communicate to you. So it could be, I don't think you have what it takes to be founder of a $1 billion company.
Yeah.
Or I don't think you're that intelligent. Or I just don't like you. They're never going to say any of those things.
That.
So they're going to come up with some other reason. Take that with a grain of salt. I wouldn't even always read the explanation. It's like, oh, nope, okay, moving on.
Okay.
That's it. Like, it's like dating. Like if somebody rejects you from a date, are you going to go back and inquire like, what?
I don't know that I've ever been rejected.
Well,
no,
of
just
course,
kidding.
of course you haven't been rejected.
I'm kidding.
This is hypothetical.
I'm kidding. Wish that was the truth. Did 60 say why they believed in you guys?
Yeah, I mean, for the one that actually did, yeah, I mean, they ended up being on our board and, are with us, all the way up till now.
Yeah. And what was it that they were like, we want to do this?
So they understood the power of like a very verticalized software play, like vertical SaaS, and how like if you are deeply embedded in the customer's workflow and they have to use you for everything, like you can grow your revenue over time, like your revenue per customer. you may get in and start with that customer making only $100 per month.
Yep.
But if they're using you for everything and you've kind of earned that trust and that relationship, over time you can start charging them for other things and
yes.
offer other add-ons and stuff. So that $100 can go to $200, $300, $400.
Yes.
And then that you can tell the story of like how can become a really big, attractive business. So like he was excited about that, and I think he saw how we were going after an area that like no one else was really thinking about, and it was underserved.
Yep.
So I think those reasons. It's funny, once we got the $8 million in the Series A, first time we ever had that much money at once, ever. And the first time we didn't actually need to raise ever in the life of the company because we had enough to really be heads down.
Yeah.
So when that happens, naturally when you don't need
Did
money.
Did you lose your shit?
Oh yeah, I mean when that wire hit, it was euphoric. That was a great day.
Okay, so continue.
And of course, the way it works is when you don't need money, money comes to you. That's just how it happens. I didn't know that until this experience. So about a couple months after closing the A, we started getting inbound from other investors that heard about us and said, hey, I'm interested in doing your B. And we're like, B, really? We're not raising money. And they're like, oh yeah, this is called preemption. New word I had never heard before. That means they're offering you money before you go out to raise the next round, hoping they can get in a little early. That was great, because that was the first time we ever had inbound demand and we weren't going out asking for money. So you take it, and on good terms, very good terms, like big markup from the A, and it had only been a few months.
Whoa.
So that was amazing. So the B investor came, we hit it off. It closed in 2 tranches, and the first close was December of 2019.
Okay.
And I remember it closed, and then we went to this holiday party right after. It was just a great night. And then the second close was the second week of March 2020. Literally right before the world shut down.
Yeah.
Had it been scheduled for a week later, it wouldn't have happened.
It.
They would have never wired that money.
1,000%.
No way. No way.
1,000%.
So just, fortune worked out the way that it did. So as you said, we raised $34 million. We still hadn't spent the 8, so we've got $40+ million in the bank now.
What? And you haven't spent the 8?
No, this was only a few months since we raised the A. So we've got $40+ million in the bank. The world shuts down. We couldn't have been in a better position at that time. So no, we didn't think about throwing in the towel at all. We thought about how can we weather the storm?
Yeah.
How can we do right by our customers and by our employees?
So you guys made a decision in 2020 not to charge your barbers during that time.
Yeah.
And investors were telling you, no, don't do that. Tell me about like how you just like, no, this is the right thing to do for the customer base we're serving.
Yeah, so when everything was shut down, the businesses couldn't operate.
Correct.
Obviously, and most of our revenue comes from processing payments and transactions and stuff. And then we have this subscription element. So when they're not operating, we're not making most of our revenue anyway. And we didn't know how long the shutdown was gonna be. Remember, at this time, it was like, maybe the world's ending. We don't know, it's just apocalypse, like what's going on? So some of our investors were saying, we have the subscription revenue, like that's like they're on the hook, they're on their contracts, they should keep paying it because, at least we'll have something coming in. But ultimately, we decided that although that may be true, they're hurting more than we are. Yeah. We have all this money in the bank. They can't even operate. They can't put food on the table. Like, why are we gonna be hitting them with this overhead? So we decided to waive all subscriptions for all of our customers for all of 2020. And then we actually ended up extending it for 2021 as well, because there was so much just uncertainty. And if you recall, some states were open, some states were closed. It was just like this back and forth. So we waived all the subscriptions for 2 years.
Shops reopened. Yeah. Sales surged. Do you think that had anything to do with the decision that people knew that like they actually care about the barbers?
I think so. I think it was that because we really showed that we kind of tried to show up for the community.
Yep.
Then I also think it was we were really intentional about helping them during the reopening process, where we actually started really quickly, like the whole company focused on shipping products to help them during that time. So like COVID waiver forms, like a digital gift card so they can make money while they were still shut down. A whole bunch of features. Like we were helping them get access to loans through the government.
Do you ever look back on what you guys have created, and although I'm sure it's been quite the roller coaster, like, whoa, we really built something that has helped people. Like my my whole family line, after they would retire, like my grandfather and his brothers and sisters, they opened up a ton of barbershops.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, that community is, I have so many memories of my childhood just, like, spent in barbershops.
Wow.
And so, do you ever spend time looking at, like, that impact that I wanted to make when I was at Skadden? I'm now doing that. And have you kind of blown your expectations out of the water at this point?
Not enough.
Okay.
I think when you're in it, there's always a sense of there's more to do, there's more work to be done.
Yeah.
And the impact isn't as big as it could be in the future. But I think it is important to kind of reflect sometimes and like acknowledge all that we've done.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't do that enough. But yeah, it's real.
So, took you, was it 8 or 9 years to get to $1 billion in payments processed?
I think that was 9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
And then within that next year, you hit $1 billion.
Yeah.
Explain to me that process. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's just...
Is that
function
attraction
of,
thing
like,
again?
Just, exponential growth. That's what the curve looks like. Like, those first few years, like, we were processing so small relative to how much we're processing now.
Yeah.
But we were growing fast. By the time you get into year 8, year 9, the numbers are just way bigger. So now we're like a billion a year essentially, and it took 9 to get to the first billion. I just think I'm just always like, man, how do we get to 10 billion a month? Is what I want to know.
A month.
Yeah, that's what.
A month. That's the new goal. 10 billion a month.
Well, that would be actually probably a little high. 10 billion a year is what I was actually meaning, because we're doing about a billion a year run rate now. So if we 10x that'd be 10 billion a year.
Yeah.
So that'd be a little under $1 billion a month. But so that's where my mind is now. It's like where we are now is great.
Yeah.
It's always like I like multiples of 10 because it's easy. I'm like, how do we 10x where we are now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that you said you guys are always raising, right? And so how do you choose, at this point, how have you chosen, like, made the determination between growth over profit?
So it was really a growth-centric environment, I would say, COVID
Yeah.
through 2022 or so,
Yeah.
where that was really, companies were really being rewarded solely for growth. Then the market shifted, interest rates
Okay.
changed, went up, multiples contracted, and it's much more about being efficient.
Okay.
Now where we are is it's an interesting time to be running a company, because it's like now it's like kind of like both. Like investors want growth and efficiency at the same time,
Okay.
which is fun. So where that has left us is like trying to find a good balance
Okay.
of still having strong growth, but getting more efficient every year, which we've been doing, and having a pathway to getting profitable without needing to raise capital.
Yeah.
So any capital raise is like opportunistic. Because we've been scarred, we have the battle wounds of early days of not having money and
Yep.
potentially running out of money. Like,
Yep.
I never ever want to be in a position of that again.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, we haven't raised since 2021. I mean, it's about to be 2026. We haven't
Wow.
raised because we haven't needed to raise.
Wow.
A lot of companies who were raising big rounds
Wow.
like we were in 2021 have blown through that money, or have been in a position where they had to raise like rounds on not good terms.
Now, do investors ever feel a way about that? That like, hey, you've got all this money that you're sitting on. Do they ever push you to be more aggressive?
No, well, I think they would have maybe a few years ago. Now, they push you for more growth, but they don't want to do it at the expense of efficiency. So it's not like you can
Okay.
you can just pour fuel on the fire in inefficient,
Yeah.
customer acquisition costs
Yeah.
and grow that way, and they're going to be like, good job.
So now we talked about like what your goal is money-wise, but like as a company, I know that you guys are now lending to barbers.
Yeah.
What's the goal now?
So the lending product is interesting. We have so much data on our customers and how much revenue they're making, and these people tend to be underbanked and not have like relationships with banks, so that they to the point where they have like access to capital.
Yeah.
So we're kind of filling that void by allowing them to access capital based on their business, like based on how much revenue they make.
Yep.
And there's like, an algorithm that basically determines who qualifies, for capital.
Yep.
And what's really cool is that we see these shops who have been on Squire, for years. Eventually, they hit numbers where they're eligible. How much their loan is, they're qualified for goes up, over time as their business improves. And they take the loan, they open a second location,
Yep.
or they renovate, and then they pay it back, and then they get another loan. So it's like,
From you guys.
yeah, well, it's through a partnership with one of our partners.
Yep.
But our data and our platform is using the decision-making calculus on like who qualifies. So it's really, it's great to see. I think it's much needed in the market, and it's helping these business owners, because access to capital is like everything for a business owner.
If there was one thing you could go back and tell the version of yourself that started this when you quit your job at Skadden, what would it be?
Oh man. I think I would just, I wouldn't want to tell myself anything that would have changed the past.
Okay, so let's say you're telling another founder something.
Okay, tell another founder something.
Yeah.
I would want to tell them, prepare yourself. There's gonna be some hard times, but try to enjoy the ride and appreciate the journey. Because I think if you keep kind of like that kind of mindset when it's super hard and you put it in perspective, it's a blessing to even be able to have a shot at this, particularly for people that look like us.
Yeah.
Like, had I been born 50 years ago or
Wouldn't have
100
been
years
anything.
ago, what would I have been doing? Like, who knows? It wouldn't have been this,
1000%.
most likely. So just to be in a position to have a shot at bat and to be giving it your all, even if it doesn't work, like that in and of itself is kind of a blessing.
Yeah.
But if you have the attitude, I think it increases the chances of being successful and getting past those hard times. So that's what I would tell them.
Is there, last question.
Yeah.
Does work-life balance exist? Because you said enjoy it, right? Like take a step back to enjoy it.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you? Like how do you take that step back to enjoy it?
It does not exist for people who are extremely successful or endeavor to be extremely successful.
Yeah.
Which everybody doesn't endeavor to. Everybody doesn't want that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you are trying to do the impossible,
Yeah.
and create a
Which you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Create a multi-billion-dollar company from nothing against all odds.
Yeah.
Don't expect work-life balance. But if you actually love what you do and you love and it kind of fills you with energy and excitement, then you don't really. It's all life.
Yeah.
Like there's no separation. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank
Songe,
you.
this was awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We didn't talk about your business though.
One of the last time we spoke, I was telling you that eventually I wanted to do you guys' story,
Yeah.
which I'm still hoping is a thing, right? But am I going to be one of those people running around the entertainment industry just like begging these studios to make my project? Like I know plenty of people that are doing that and they have something that they really believe in and it takes them 5-6 years just to get someone to say no because entertainment is just slow and there's not a real business model around it and like it's a bunch of people wasting people's time. So obviously, like I grew up in the entertainment industry and I always kind of knew that I wanted to get behind the camera, just didn't know what space. So I was like, okay, like I got to shit or get off the pot, right?
Yeah.
So when I look at entertainment as a whole, entertainment is one of the few industries where they spend millions of dollars on a product. And then by the time that product is released, that's the end of the consumer relationship. Because the entertainment industry spends all of this money guessing what people are going to like, and then it either hits or it doesn't. It's a gamble. Mm-hmm. So I was sitting down with an entertainment executive the other day, and he was saying that he went up to Silicon Valley to be like, hey, you guys have all this money. Why are you not buying Paramount? Like Paramount was going under. And so their response was, the industry is antiquated. That's why we're not putting our money there. And so that's kind of what made me land on there's no real business model here. And so I started to look at what does it look like to build a company where the funnel is now different. Like this show is called The Open Door, right? And so the goal here is to create an entertaining piece of content, but then around that, how can we not just inspire our consumer, but how do we actually connect the dots for them? So there's all these people out here that have all these dreams that like maybe they get inspired by a television show, maybe they get inspired by a movie, but they don't know what to do with that. So creating this platform that allows us to then create this funnel where you watch a piece of our content and then within our app, you actually find the tools that back that up. And then within the app, there's also a community layer. With that being said, that kind of moves us to like our second problem. So the business model was kind of messed up and it was all over the place because it's a gamble. But then Netflix kind of came in and they changed the model. Let's make a SaaS platform. We know we have money coming through the door. But then everybody thought that was a good idea. You've got Netflix, you've got Amazon, you've got Hulu, you got Disney Plus, you got Paramount. I've talked to a few different people at platforms, and a big response is that their biggest metric is time on platform. And so now you've got all these companies that are no longer caring about what it is we're putting in front of people, which I think that we're actually seeing the effects of that on our culture, because their biggest thing is time on platform. So everybody's just competing for everybody's attention, which then takes us to our third problem, which is entertainment has lost its cultural currency. Like there's all these people that are proud to say the book that they read over the weekend. Oh, what'd you do over your weekend? Oh, I read, whatever book was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. I'd been meaning to read it. But if you take that book and you put it into the format of media, all of a sudden they feel guilty for consuming it. The watch you wear, it says something about the person you are, the car you drive, the business that you create, even like Apple Computer, that says something about you as a person. I think that we have an opportunity, especially now because the landscape is so oversaturated, to shift that narrative, just because I believe that storytelling is the last thing that we have that people are actually willing to sit and listen to what you have to say. Countries are built on a story. The story that you tell yourself every day when you wake up, that story dictates how you show up in the world. And so it's like, I think that right now we're wasting this vehicle that we have. And so what does it look like to create a company around the story is actually the thing that changes your life? So let's say that we create the story about Squire and how you and Dave built this. And it's an incredible television series that's entertaining, and the founder is chasing this guy down the street to an ATM to say like, no, you're giving me my $5,000. And it's entertaining, and it's not to like do some PSA thing, but on the back end we create a curriculum where it's like, oh, you were interested in this story of two young Black guys creating a multi-billion-dollar business, and we're actually going to teach you how to do that. Here's the rule book on how to do that. And so now we're bringing in community, we're bringing in tools for people to actually say that like consuming this entertainment actually gave me something. That gives entertainment its cultural currency back, because to consume Rhume content says something about you. No, I didn't spend my time watching Netflix or Amazon or Hulu. I did it with Rhume. And because we gave you all these tools to build your businesses, we're now giving you access to our investors and our fund, and we're helping you start your business, and we're doing it the same way that we did Rhume. And so that's kind of what I have in mind.
Yeah, dope. No, makes a lot of sense. I mean, I like how you laid out the 1, 2, 3 and kind of like the different problems, because that really resonated. And I think that, like you said, attention is really the currency.
Yeah.
And these streaming platforms are competing amongst each other, but they're also competing with Facebook and TikTok.
Yep.
And you see that sometimes, like even myself, like I'll be watching a show, and the next thing I know, I start scrolling, and now I'm like back and forth. Like I'm not 100% even watching the show anymore if it doesn't really capture me.
Yep.
So no, I think that makes less. From a business standpoint, I think the concept makes a lot of sense. What I always tell founders is like, the more time you can spend understanding your customer or prospective customer, or in your case, these would be users,
Yep.
And really like at the deepest level possible, like that's only going to be helpful.
Okay.
And like for Squire, like we try to do that by like even before we had a product, going into the barbershops, sitting there, talking to them, talking to the customers waiting, just really trying to surveying them, really trying to get understanding. So like, what are your problems? What's your hair on fire problem?
Yep.
What do you want? What are the things you are excited about? In this case, it sounds like to me you have a hypothesis that people will want to engage in entertainment that's also kind of educational. Like if they're watching the show that's about Squire or whatever, and then there's this element of, and you can see how to do this, that's something they would want.
Yes. That's the thing that I know that as I'm building this, I have to do a better job of getting that across. Like I want to kind of Trojan horse everything. So like, have you seen The Big Short by any chance? About the 2008 financial crisis? Yeah. So that was the first time I went and I watched something, and like I didn't go to watch The Big Short because I wanted to learn about the 2008 financial crisis, but that was the first time that it was explained to me well. And so watching something like that, I was like, I wonder if there's a business model around this, that you can take something that's completely entertaining. I'm not coming to you saying, Songe, I'm going to teach you about the 2008 financial crisis, but I'm going to put all of these phenomenal actors in this phenomenal storytelling and an incredible director. I'm going to give you a piece of entertaining content. I'm going to put that in front of you. And so oftentimes when I talk to people and they're saying like what they've done with their life, a lot of times they're like, you know, it's going to sound ridiculous, but I watched this movie and I didn't even know that I could build a career around that. And so it's like, if that is already something that exists, then how can I connect the dots? I mean, for me, let's say I had this idea that I wanted to create something 3 years ago, but being that my entire life I've been in front of the camera, I was kind of telling myself like, and granted, you know, I was making a decent amount of money, but like, I was like, Rhyon, you don't know anything about starting a business. Like, that's not, you've spent the past 30 years in front of the camera. And then when I would explore and dip my toe in, I'd spend some money here and I'm like, oh, I was actually supposed to do this thing first. And then that would kind of scare me off. And then I would do this thing over here. And it's like, if I could create this ecosystem where it's like, oh, you got inspired by this piece of content, let me actually give you the tools. You're still going to make some mistakes, but like, let me make it a little easier for you to start and get things going. I don't want it to feel like, oh, we're creating educational content to like pull you in. Yes, there will be like subsets of educational content, but like we're pulling you in purely through like, we made you laugh, we made you cry, we made you lean in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I will watch it for sure. All I'm saying is that there's every good business is a hypothesis that you don't know. And that's because if it was proven, somebody else would have did it already.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been done, especially an innovative business like this. And my only point is that you want to vet that as much as possible. You clearly believe it.
Okay,
you might
I misunderstood
me,
you. Yes,
but you want to like as much user, surveys, as much talking to just as many people as you can of like, would you, and give me the real feedback. Would you want this? Would you? How would you want this? What would you want it to look like? That's only going to make the product that much
totally
better. Before you start building, sometimes we spend all these resources and we build the product, and then we're like, this happened to us. Like, oh shit, this isn't actually what our customer wants. This isn't how they want it. So, that's my only point, because it's a big bet, and it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist.
Correct.
At all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you think that I do have something here?
I think you have. The problems you're solving. I get the problems. I get the entertainment. Providing great quality entertainment, and then having a layer of like information or education around that. I would definitely like something like that for certain content, not for everything.
Yeah.
So that to me is the devil in the details. But I think there's definitely something there. And as I was saying before, I think that these streaming platforms are now like commodities. Like there's no loyalty to one over the other. It's really about the content. Like you might pay a subscription for one because you really love the show, you love that actor, you heard about it. But like, aside from that, they're literally all the same product for the most part. So I think that, and on one hand, it's kind of saturated marketplace because there's so many of them, but on the other hand, it's open because I don't think there's like any like dominant player where everyone like is only loyal to this. Like there's room for a new entrant if there's a novel way and there's enough value there. And the content, of course, has to be
spot on.
It has to be better. It has to be great, or at least as good, if not better, than everything else is out there. So it strikes me as a challenging business to get off the ground,
Yeah.
but if you could do it, a really potentially really big business as well, because the opportunity would be huge.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's what I needed.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
This was awesome.
right,
Song,
thank you.
thank you so much.
Good seeing you.
You too.